So your one proposal was to finish out the original job. The second proposal is to refine some of those red areas.
That's right.
Does anybody remember what the original cost of cleanup, the original cleanup proposal cost was?
How much was that, what you're associated with? And it's good news. It's important.
Oh my God.
And it is dealing with good news.
300 cubic yards? Is that?
I don't know what the cost was, I remember around 6.5 million. Something like that.
That was just based on a speculative bid, so it's all, we don't know. Right, I think that's the answer, but we don't, because we don't know what this is.
Any other comments? This time I open to the public. Anyone wish to be heard? Mary?
I'm just gonna keep talking because time, I understand, is limited. I am going over first the two resolutions and the attachments that were attached to it. The first one is the 189, which is to retest so that you can save how much has to be brought to a contaminated site for do additional borings in order to determine it. I didn't have, this was not attached to what was on the website, so we didn't have all the dots and the colors of the dots. But I did also have a question, and this is, and I asked this the last time, on the general contract, when we're talking about, sorry, when we're talking about indemnification in their scope of, they talk about the consultant not being responsible, which is true, for any of the contamination. And that if a lawsuit should start, then the borough is required to indemnify and hold harmless and defend First Environment in this case, unless they were proven to be the sole contaminator of the site. And my question was, is that what also appears in terms, contract? I didn't have a.
I mean, just to answer quickly, we haven't agreed on the final version
I'm just,
of that
well,
contract.
the resolution you're
That's
passing
their,
has this
that's
attached.
their proposal. I mean,
I know when the last time I said that, but when things are attached, I'm presuming.
no, I understand.
As a member of the public, I'm presuming that that's. Now, the second one is for $19,400. And this is additional testing, which makes me very nervous because it says, when they did the initial testing and the chromatograms that was found, there are additional compounds present in the samples that warrant further evaluation, that the DEP requires them to do further testing. And that is the second resolution, what that's paying for. But it doesn't indicate what those compounds are. And I would like to know an explanation as to what are those compounds that are not the PVCs that were in the original testing. I also had some questions because the geoprobe and the oversight was on both things, and yet they said they can do them simultaneously. And it didn't indicate how many borings were going to be done for the second one. Yet that and laboratory analysis was 13,000, and the one on the first one was for less than that. So I was wondering how many borings they were going to do. And now in terms of other things that are related to this, but not specific in terms of this, in all the requests that I made on the Oprah request for all correspondence between the DEP and the EPA, nowhere did I find any statement from the DEP, and I don't know where you get your information from, Councilman Henwood, that the DEP had rejected what terms had submitted. As a matter of fact, in Mr. Carriston's email to Ann Finnegan, who is with the DEP, he said, this was on May 14th, he said, we agreed that the SIP submitted by terms be rescinded without prejudice because First Environment is preparing a new one, so don't bother to look at it any further because we're going to have a new one for it. And working in law without prejudice does not mean rejection. As a matter of fact, what without prejudice means you could bring it back. So I don't know where anybody gets the idea that the DEP has rejected, and unless it's by verbal conversations that don't appear anywhere in writing, which is always difficult, there's no record of them saying that. You also indicated that there would be about 7,700 cubic yards of contaminated soil to be removed. Mr. Divey's indicated in a meeting, and again, this was in Mr. Carson's email to the DEP, that he admitted to bringing 50 truckloads of soil from the outgoing to the site, to Veterans Field. And if there are 18 cubic yards in a truckload, which is your average truckload, it turns out to be 22,300 cubic yards that he dumped from the field. And I find that hard to believe that only 7,700 of that is contaminated, knowing what Alcoa went through when they took that building down. Also, your little map here, the Little League field is not contested. Now, on the very original contamination, the Little League field did find contaminations in it. So I don't know why that is not being tested also, especially if it was Waterside Construction that put the dirt there, since we don't know where that was from. And the other thing another question that I had was, what level are you cleaning it up to now? I got the hearing from what I'm hearing here, you're not cleaning it up to the original level.
I believe
That was
we're
requested.
sticking with the original level, Mary.
I find that if you're doing it to be more and damning terms for saying there should have been more, it sounds very strange to me that you suddenly can bless all this soil and most of it gets cleaned up, which is what happens. And following the train of thought of a resident that was here at the last meeting, if the independent coalition is responsible for the contamination on the field originally, because we had it tested for Green Acres, then I guess you should be thanking Waterside for saving you $2 million here tonight, even though it was, oh, that's right, they contaminated, didn't they?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important that we put on the record.
Excuse me, it's always
there's
to the
a lot
public.
of information that necessarily might not be true, and it happens a lot, that we are committed to the original levels, which is the residential level. How do you describe it, Phil, please?
Mayor, is it open to the public?
0.2 parts per million, right?
Anyone else wish to be
We're
heard?
confirming we're sticking to that level. Probably not, yes.
The original bid specification.
I have the right to actually interject after each person talks.
Not according to
Looking
your
at the book,
rules.
Mr. Mayor, I do. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this mayor and council advised by Robert rules, perhaps Mr. Henwood could roll us up to read it. Dollar according to 60 Hudson Terrace. Can I ask?
You have 5 minutes, Valerie.
Yes, I know, 5 minutes. Can I ask the engineers a question? You talked about the 1,000 feet cubic, you're saving another 1,000 cubic feet. What did you mean by that?
What was expressed in the self-implementing plan that we were provided was that 14,000 cubic yards, which equates to roughly 22,000 tons of material needed to be disposed of as hazardous material. Based on the results of our testing, the amount of hazardous material that we're calculating is somewhere in the neighborhood of 11,000 tons.
So it's less what you're calculating, but like the former resident said, you haven't done the Little League field yet, right?
We have sampled where the material was placed as well as looked at the prior data that was collected. And there were certain remedial actions that were completed very early on in the project that encompassed, other contaminants.
Are you going to test the Little League bed?
how do they know?
Or you're just gonna go by prior data and
Now, we
Did they
will
do
know
it
what
in the
the
dark?
required.
prior data? Whose data? Water, not water sites.
It was,
Terms?
without, I'm not 100% certain where the data was generated from. I suspect, and I think it is terms data, because terms describe remedial actions that were conducted prior at the site to address historic fill material.
But you will, I mean, considering the history of this, I know you're a professional, you will find out where that data came from and if it's valid.
It will all be rolled.
You can't really be trusted by the person hired to remediate, I would assume. I get it, you paint a really happy picture about what's going on, but I have a file here of documents I opened. There's nothing happy, there's nothing pretty, and these documents did not come from me. They did not come from Mary Hogan or anybody in the coalition. These aren't government documents. That clearly states Edgewater has a real problem. And I hear a lot of talk from Mr. Henwood about terms didn't do this, terms didn't do this. The fact is that according to those documents, terms was vigilance. Terms kept telling the contractor Waterside not to dump there, not to bring in untested fill. In fact, at one point, terms had to put a padlock. So it's really nice that you're using a scapegoat like terms, but let's talk about who did this. Waterside Construction Company. Let's talk about the fact that he has a history of these actions. 2007, Lyndhurst sued him for dumping contaminated fill. It goes on and on and on, and I don't hear councilmen speaking out against and saying that word, Waterside. I keep hearing terms. But the fact is that he was hired and paid to remediate. And I get it when people are in business and, they want to make the biggest buck, profit margin that they can. However, this is a field where our children play on. This is our only outdoor park. This is not only our children, we go there. And the shame of it is that in the early 80s, this was done exactly almost the same way, except it wasn't so covered up. So I have to ask you my questions that I never got an answer for. Question 1. Does the Edgewater Council intend on adding Brian Christensen as a defendant to any litigation the borough may pursue against those responsible for the dumping of contaminated fill in Veterans Park? Between the dates, between the year of 2013 and 2014, Mary Hogan and Valerie Bardinez questioned the council on the safety of residents living at 38 Koa, which is on the Reeland site where the contaminated fill came from. During that time, it was determined that the contaminated fill had been illegally dumped in Veterans Park, and it originated at the former Reeland site, which also contains 38 Koa building. Question 2. What is the status regarding the Department of Environmental Protection investigation regarding contamination on the Reeland site? Question 3. Has the DEP made a determination in writing regarding the health and safety of residents living at 38 Koa? And has the DEP stipulated as to whether or not contamination currently exists under or around 38 Koa? In writing. Question 4. Is 38 Koa identified as a generator of the contaminated material that has been removed from its property and dumped in Veterans Park? Question 5. Is there sufficient insurance to protect the borough of Edgewater against future liability arising out of the disposal of the PCP contaminated soils? Question 6.
Valerie,
I got 2 more, and I'm
I
going to
give
give
you
it to
no
you.
more.
Is
Give
the
you
borough
some time.
including the cost of this insurance in the amount necessary to cover the cost of removing the soil? And what is the level the council is seeking? I will give this a copy. Okay, questions? I'll give a copy to Ms. ready to disperse, and I'd like an answer from the mayor and council in writing. Have a great day.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Ma'am?
Well, my name is Tina Munson, 270 Old River Road. I was just going to present from my point of view what a terrible disservice I think that we have done to the children of our town by taking so very long to get this matter cleared up. I teach art classes at the community center, little art classes. They last maybe 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a quarter. And I do them inside, so what I do is actually not directly affected by what's happening outside. But I have to tell you that the children really need outside time. They need to get all that energy out of their system. They needed that little playground. A few years ago when they still had that, things were much better. They could get energy out of their system. They could play in the playground. They could come in. They could have their art class. They could get to meet new friends. Then they could go back out to the playground or back out to the field and kind of solidify their friendships. And this is a very important, it's not the class itself, but it's a very important way that the class was framed. The children have been without this for over 2 years, and it's an absolute disservice to them. And I would say it's a crime, and it's even a sin that this has been done to the children of our town. It's just sad.
Any other comments from the public? Sir?
Darling, 22 Legend Hills. I just wanted to know, are we going to discuss about some solutions here and the timing of it, or is it just about complaining?
That's not complaining. We just received the maps of what the testing companies here. They showed us the red and the blue, what has to come out, and we're moving forward to try and have it removed now. We're setting up the bid process to go out to bid to have it removed.
Okay, can I ask a few questions if you don't mind?
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, because I'm on the board and people ask me in the community as to how did this happen? I know very little about it, and based on what I heard, the company that was in charge of this farm protection, is that correct?
No.
Okay, was there a guarantor involved in this?
There was a
Yes.
bond,
There was a bond?
$7 million bond.
Okay. And so is this in the court, or what's the
Yeah.
legal remedies for the town?
Well, actually, we're working our way through it with Tim's help and Phil's help. Tomorrow morning, we have a session with Judge Mecca, but, hopefully that's the last one we'll have to deal with. But, yeah, I mean, it's not as easy. I agree with Tina, with her, I have 2 children, and they are being penalized. But at the end of the day, it's not as easy to just move forward and take action. We have to make sure that we have every T crossed and every I dotted. So, if we're dealing with the bond company, we have accurate information in order going after that $7 million.
I mean, my questions basically come down from the people in the community. They ask me, I'm on the board, and I don't really have any answers. There's no communication from the town about, what's going on, because it's the only field, frankly. And we do have some small children who used to go there and play, and now they can't. So it would be great if we have a kind of a more communication, some form of dialogue going with the broader community in general. That would really help, because
I believe we've updated on the website. I know we've tried to update as many times as possible, and like I said, every 2 weeks. We're in summer season now, maybe we're 1 meeting a month, but it's the topic of discussion at every meeting, so.
okay.
It's a weekly meeting, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Well, every Friday since, in the last month, we've had a meeting on Friday as well.
Okay, hopefully we'll get to hear about it.
And we will continue the meetings on Friday, and we'll continue to update the website.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Your name was again?
Raj Bandari.
From the get-go, from the developer, the get-go, acknowledged the issue and offered to clean it up. The contention here was the volume of contamination. And we had an issue with the information that was being provided to us by the previous LSRP because there were inconsistencies. It was taking a long time. The DEP did not approve the SEP plan or the remedial action plan. They did not approve it. So as a result of their inability to be able to provide us with the correct data, we then went ahead and hired Tim Corsten, who recommended First Environment, and we've got this data. The data is significantly different from that was previously provided to us by the previous LSRP. So now we have a thorough analysis of the soil and the contaminations and the levels and their location. We can now move forward with a plan that we can present to both DEP and the EPA, and we're very confident that there will be no issues. As a matter of fact, now we are further thinking about, we're looking to pass 2 resolutions here to give First Environment additional authority to move forward with further delineation to help lower the cost even more. So the results of this so far, according to First Environment, earlier this afternoon before you got here, this saved the borough $2.7 million approximately. And that is why we are, although we want to move as quickly as possible and get the field open as quickly as possible, we want to make sure that we do it in a prudent way and that we do this right and that the borough is made whole.
Okay. One more from my understanding, so that people around and the community, they say in the first place whether this was even needed because the level of contamination was so small and marginal in the sense that you could get the same amount of carcinogenic from your grill.
Originally?
Right.
Originally there were 5 locations on the park. The original spots. 5 hotspots.
Hotspots, okay. All right.
We can thank
Can I respond to the?
Motorcycle.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Under open to the public. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Dennis?
I mean,
Dennis Gallagher, 18 on. Did I understand you say that this is going to be going into next year?
What?
Are we still going to be dealing with this next year? I thought I heard you say before.
Well, we're moving into August. It would be safe to say we will be dealing with it next year, yes.
What's your projection?
Well, maybe the testing company could, they're.
I wait for bid specs going to be frequent.
damn straight.
So where do you see us going?
I agree. I mean, it's really going to come down to the schedule and the commitment of machinery and personnel by bidding on it. It's certainly, I think it would be conservative to say that, the remediation alone, the excavation of this volume of material is going to take several months to do. But again, that you really need to get those timeframes and schedules from the bid.
Other than that, I believe right at the end of the last meeting that you mentioned that you were going to take the proceedings televised.
I'm sorry. So you're talking to me personally?
Yes, yes.
Well, Dennis, you have 5 minutes open to the public. At the end, we'll try to respond. That's what we've always done. So.
And is the open session just on this issue, or could be anything? Right.
Okay, so you're going to address that? Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Peter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Council. Peter DePaul, 606 on Cliff Avenue. It'll be 3 years in September that this problem came to light. So I appreciate the moving ahead, but I still also say let's do it with caution. This new map that was brought in, I see the ball field, the Little League ball field, it has not been inspected. And yet, as I understand, there was dirt dumped there and it covered with clean dirt. Some of the correspondence that was open. So I think that should be carefully looked at. I noticed also that the black indicates analytical data not yet available. I hope when that comes in, there'll be a decision, green, blue, or red on that analytical data. A lot in the south through southern part of the field, the jogging path and walkway, and some dotted in and out of the red spots up near the Little League field. So there's still more consideration to be done. And I believe in Mr. Carson's letters that was open, there was consideration that reflected that Waterside does have a track record of doing this type of business as usual, filling something with whatever trash you have. Please, we have to do this not the old way. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Ma'am?
Shelby Thompson, 385 Undercliff Avenue. I was just curious if any of the contamination from the field has moved to other places in Edgewater around the area. If that kind of data is available in our
Is there any kind of response to the concern that anything's drifted?
But no final.
Aren't there monitoring, is there monitoring going on now?
Oh,
Shoot. Right,
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, and I do apologize if I am in opposition to Robert rules of order, but I would like for you to confirm on behalf of the council, by straw poll voters, that we are committed to the original residential levels, that we haven't changed that because it's important. That comments aren't made, that might be just sheer, basically falsehoods. That we